Hello and welcome to my latest video. My name is Ray. If you don't know me, I use they, them pronouns or any neo-pronouns, and I'm also a medical student. If you're returning, welcome back. You may have noticed it's been a while. I actually did try to record a video a couple of weeks ago, and I did record the video, but I wasn't able to upload it for some reason. I tried several times, so I think it was just too long. So I'm re-recording this video. I'm going to try to make it shorter. And today what I want to talk about is my experience as a non-binary person and how my first semester of medical school went being out as a non-binary person. So content warning for this video, basically I'm going to be talking a lot about like anti-trans discrimination, which I experienced a lot. I'm going to go into a couple of examples of that. So yeah, details for that. Anyway, so I think in summary, what it's been like for me, and I think for many other trans folks, including non-binary folks as medical students, is it can be pretty difficult. I'm not the only person that feels this way. I will include in the video description a link to a couple of studies that have asked transgender people who are in medical school and or are physicians what their experiences are like. And a lot of folks, like I think it was like half to 2/3 of the folks experience some kind of anti-trans discrimination, and that really has a obviously very negative impact. So for me, for my first semester, like I mentioned, I am out at my school, and what that means for me is basically at the start of the semester, I actually made a Facebook post. My school is very big about Facebook. Everybody's on Facebook and in these school groups to get our updates. So I made a post at the beginning introducing myself, like many of other students, and I used my pronouns, and I said I was trans. So, and then every person I met, when I introduced myself as Ray, I also introduced myself with my pronouns. I said, "Hello, I'm Ray." And I use they, them pronouns, and I would ask folks what their pronouns were as well. The most common reactions I get from most people here, and in general, when I say I'm trans or when I ask for pronouns, first they usually say, "You're the first trans person that I've ever met," which is valid. And usually I reply with, "I'm the first person that you know of that you've met," which gets them thinking, because often trans people don't go around saying, "By the way, I'm trans," because that can be dangerous or uncomfortable or both, or, just for other reasons. We don't have to go around announcing ourselves, just like cisgender people don't have to go around and say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so and I'm cisgender," which is a privilege for them, right? And then for a lot of folks, when I ask pronouns, most of the time they weren't sure what I meant. And often I would say like, "Oh, and what gender pronouns do you use?" And they would just pause for a minute, and then in a confused tone, they would repeat their name to me. So usually I would explain it like, "Oh, do you use he, she, or they, or different pronouns?" And then once I said that, the vast majority would then either say he or she. Most of the folks that I've met are cisgender, although I certainly know of other transgender medical students. They do exist. I don't know of many who are out. And at my school, I don't really know of any other trans students who are out. So that can be difficult too. It's been very difficult for me to find community. I know of some other queer people who are cisgender. I've encountered anti-trans discrimination from them as well. So it's been very hard for me to connect with the community, and usually for me that's quite important. Let's see, some examples of some of the problems I've faced being out. And like, I assert my pronouns. When people get them wrong, I do correct folks, unless I'm really tired, because, after like I've done it 10 times that day, or sometimes multiple times in a row with the same person, it just gets tiring. And if I feel like I'm not being heard, I just don't have the energy always. But anyway, I remember like my first week of school. It was like not even school officially yet. It was like end of orientation or something. I went to this like party that I was told was supposed to be like a queer party. It was not. It was not run by queer folks. There was only like a couple of gay folks there. It was definitely not like trans inclusive like I was told it would be. And during a conversation, somebody was talking about me and used the wrong pronouns. So I went in to say, oh, hey, by the way, as a reminder, I use they, them pronouns. Another student next to me grabbed my shirt and like pulled me so hard that I actually got thrown off balance and like shifted my weight, and like in a threatening tone, like said quietly next to me, like, time and place, this is not the time and place to do that, which was scary and it made me angry. I later had a conversation with that person. Well, first I ignored him and continued to correct the person on my pronouns. And then afterwards I had a conversation with that other person who grabbed me and explained why that was not okay. And I think, it got them thinking. They said they didn't mean to intimidate me, but obviously that's a very aggressively intimidating thing to do. So that's like one of the more like physical experiences I've had. In general, a lot of folks have told me that they will not be using my pronouns. Either they've told others that, or like to my face they've said that is not their preference or whatever. A lot of folks just ignore me purposefully when I correct them. They just continue on with the conversation. If I try again, they just act like they didn't hear me, or some folks will even just say, I know, and then continue to misgender me and don't change the pronouns they were using, which is wild and really terrible. I've had personal messages targeting me, like students trying to friend me on Facebook and then send me messages telling me that I don't belong, or that they don't agree with how I say things, which is just me, asking folks to respect who I am and just at least like accept that I exist and use my correct pronouns. And it's okay, like I understand a lot of people need to practice pronouns that are not he or she, or like the pronouns that you might expect and perceive somebody to use. But you should practice them. Just like a new name, practice new pronouns. And just like a name, those pronouns are just as important to who I am and who I want to be addressed as. I've also had some discrimination from professors. In fact, a very recent example that I had was there was a learning opportunity that only asked for male and female volunteers. So I emailed the professor. I said, hey, I'm non-binary. I'd like to participate in this learning opportunity. And, the phrasing, it seems like you're just looking for any student, so it shouldn't really matter, male or female. Can you make this more gender inclusive? And initially they said yes. And then separately, they called me in, and only me, into the office and tried to tell me that I had to speak and act a certain way when I actually did the learning opportunity. They were asking me to be polite. And they even said that I was aggressive in how I asserted that I was trans. But then when I talked with this professor some more, what they were really trying to say was that I was direct. I was never aggressive. And this professor also admitted that as well. They said, I don't know why I called you aggressive, because looking back at your email, you were not aggressive. You were just being direct. And I also pointed out that even though they just wanted all students, to be kind, patient, and polite with there's like other medical students coming in as a learning opportunity. This professor only called me in as the one trans student to speak up, and then tried to tell me that I needed to speak a certain way, which, if they expect students to be kind and patient, you can call in all students to talk about that. So in that way, it's discriminatory only to call in and try to tell the trans student how to speak. It's really targeting me. So we came to a better understanding after that, but it certainly is not something that, like the other students who either are cisgender or maybe they were not cisgender but they didn't speak up and they just felt able to sign up for the activity regardless, or they were too afraid to speak up. However it is, none of those folks were called in, only I was. So I'm glad I was able to talk with that professor, but still, like, those are the types of things that I encounter. There's both subtle and very blatant transphobia that I have to deal with on top of being a medical student. Currently, right now, I'm not going to the campus unless I absolutely have to, because I've been made to feel so unwelcome there. I am trying to make the environment more inclusive, working with the administration, working with a few other students who also want to see the same thing. So I hope in the long term it gets better, but it certainly has impacted me very negatively. And again, these are not experiences that I face exclusively. I'm going to link to the studies I mentioned in the description, and you can read for yourself some other similar or different but also discriminatory experiences that folks faced. And in general, yes. So in summary, being a non-binary medical student and being like out is hard. I could not do it differently. I don't want to be perceived as cisgender. I hope that by me being out and asserting to folks that this is how it should be, I hope that gives them the exposure that they need so that when they encounter a different transgender colleague or patient, they'll be better, like, mentally prepared, and that interaction will go better. And that's part of why I do what I do, just like putting myself out there and like asking people to use my pronouns. But it still sucks. Anyway, I hope to get back into making videos. I've definitely been having a rough time because of the transphobia. Also, I'm just busy, medical student, but I hope to talk about some other things, other experiences in medical school. I have gotten some feedback on my anonymous forums, so I'm so glad. If you have more topics you want me to cover, feel free. There will be a link to my anonymous feedback survey. It's like just a Google form. Your name will not be attached to it at all, and you can tell me what you want to see in my videos or comment below. Anyway, thanks for tuning in once again, and hopefully I'll get a new video up sooner than this one took.